Hey there, my name's Rod Yates. Welcome to the very first episode of Mastering Events, an Audience Republic podcast. Each episode I'll be talking to some of the world's most accomplished event professionals to discover how they got where they are today, the lessons they've learned throughout that journey, and their insights around event marketing and maximizing ticket sales. My guest today is Chamie McCurry, Chief Marketing Officer at Danny Wimmer Presents. For more than 2 decades, Chamie has worked with some of the biggest promoters in the world, such as Clear Channel, AEG Presents, and now Danny Wimmer, where she oversees the marketing for some of North America's largest festivals, such as Louder Than Life, Bourbon Beyond, Sonic, Temple and Aftershock, to name just a few. We talk about what it takes to bring those festivals to life in this interview, as well as many other marketing insights. But we start right back at the beginning. I've seen a quote from you saying that you grew up in a town smaller than some of the crowds who attend your festivals. Whereabouts was that, and what was that like?
Yeah, I grew up in Liberty, Missouri, which is a suburb of Kansas City. So the town I grew up in, 35,000 people. When I was growing up there, it's much bigger now.
Okay.
So it was nice to be at that small town community feel, but we were 15, 20 minutes away from Kansas City, where you could explore, and there was concerts and sporting events and a lot, but yet in the small town community that I was raised in, it felt very much like a small town where, there were parades every Friday for football games, and the town was shut down for Friday Night Lights, and everyone knew everyone, and you couldn't really get away with much because your parents knew everyone.
Did you try to get away with much?
No. I was a pretty good student. I took it all pretty seriously.
Yeah, nice. Were your parents involved in music or events, or did they have any connection to the world that you're currently in?
No, growing up, my parents were into music, and there was always music playing at our house. I went to my first concert when I was 6 with my mom, and then
what was that?
In subsequent years, I went to Rick Springfield.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, my first concert actually, I believe, was in the womb at REO Speedwagon.
Great.
But, my father passed away when I was 2. And one of the things that I received later in life that my mom, gifted me was, his memory box. And not knowing him very well, just because he passed when I was so young, got to know him through that. The serendipity of it all is he was a huge live music fan and had kept all of his concert stubs from all of the shows that he attended. And almost all of them were promoted by my very first boss, Chris Fritz. And so, the way that the world works, I ended up working for him and kind of bringing that full circle and really, finding that a connection with my dad, even though I didn't really know him through concerts, which is something I never thought, I didn't even know that this industry existed when I was younger.
Right.
And so to be able to have that moment of like, oh wow, not only did we have this shared love of concerts, but that I'm now working for, the promoter that was able to bring a lot of great memories to him, was pretty special.
That is special. Did you talk to Chris about that?
Yeah, Chris knows. I still have a relationship with Chris. In fact, I saw him last week. I have told him that story.
Nice.
Chris Fritz is a legend in Kansas City, and really, a legend in the promoter world. Back whenever, every city had their promoter before, there were big companies that did it. And Chris Fritz has been promoting concerts in Kansas City going back to the 60s and brought in every name imaginable throughout his 50-year plus in this world.
Yeah. You mentioned that there was a time where you didn't even realize there was a world behind, that this world existed beyond the stage. Was there an experience or an event which opened your eyes to the fact that this world behind the stage does exist and that maybe you'd like to be a part of it?
Yeah, so it's interesting. When I went to college in the late 90s, and my major was mass communications. I wanted to be on TV. I wanted to be on the Today Show. That was my dream.
Right.
And so I had some internship opportunities in TV, but didn't really go anywhere there. And so I got very involved with my student activities council at college and ended up booking all of the entertainment that came through. So the comedians, the magicians, for back to school night or homecoming week.
Yeah.
And through that, I was at a conference and I met these two gentlemen from Contemporary Group out of Kansas City and St. Louis, which was one of the promoters that became SFX, then Clear Channel Entertainment, then Live Nation. Mm-hmm. And they were telling me, about that Kansas City had an office and that it would be a great place to do an internship. And in my mind, I kind of thought, oh, great, TV stations cover concerts.
Right.
I'll go do an internship there because I'll meet TV people. And that'll be how I can get my door in the foot to be on TV.
Sure.
The 19, 20-year-old, how your mind works. And so I showed up at that internship not really knowing anything about a promoter. I mean, I thought in the 90s, when I was going to concerts, that bands just called the radio station and said, hey, we're coming to town, let everyone know. And that's how, and that was the organization.
Right.
And so to find out that it was this entire industry and the amount of work that went on behind in my first couple of days of my internship was like, wow, I didn't, this was not on my radar at all.
Right.
And, I didn't really understand it until I'd been there for a couple of weeks of what all it took. And this was, a much smaller operation back in the day because it was before there were really, national promoters. This is when everything was very local or regional. And most promoters really just controlled one or two rooms. And then, they brought in the tours and they just kind of ran them for one night in their local city.
Right.
So yeah, I had no idea growing up that this was an industry,
yep.
Let alone that it was one that I would be in for my entire career.
Right. Were there, even in those early stages and then, moving into Clear Channel in around 2000, I think, were there just lessons that you learned back then that are just really fundamental basics that still really ring true for you today? Any sort of key lessons?
Yeah, I mean, a lot has changed in 23 years. So I started there in 2000, and we were Contemporary Group for one amphitheater season before we got rolled up into SFX. But the core of the business is the same, which is bringing artists, to a market to perform for fans and help create those memories and those experiences that are incredibly unique to being able to see your favorite band perform live with whomever you're with, your family, your husband, your daughter, your wife, your kids, your friends, but really creating those memories that people talk about for the rest of their lives. That hasn't changed in 23 years, and I'm sure that hasn't changed from going back to the very first concerts.
Yeah.
That's, I think, why most of us who are in this business do it, is because of those magical moments that we have a part in producing. I always say a lot of promoters are people who wish that they could perform or play a musical instrument, and because they can't, they ended up doing the next best thing,
right?
Which is help bring it to life for everyone.
Did you learn an instrument? Did you have goals at any
No.
point? No. Okay.
No, I mean, I like to think I'm a really good karaoke performer, but it's all in style and substance and not at all in quality.
Right. Song of choice? Karaoke song of choice? What's your go-to?
I mean, I really like to read the room.
Okay.
Figure out what's going to get people pumped up and have them maybe not listening to my voice, but just, watching the overall performance.
Fair enough. When you, again, thinking back to those early days, and even in your career since then, obviously you mentioned Clear Channel merged into Live Nation, then you're at AEG for a long period of time, and now Danny Wimmer Presents. Have there been lessons that you've had to learn the hard way? Is there one or two things that really springs to mind where something didn't go to plan, whether it was a disaster or it just didn't really go the way you'd hoped, but it actually turned into a really big learning opportunity? Is there one or two examples that you can think of where that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's examples with every show we do of things not necessarily going to plan, but the lessons that we can take away and implement for our next event is where the learning happens and where we become better. But in my career, There's been a lot. I mean, one thing that comes to mind, we have weather, especially in the festival business where we are outside. We are vulnerable to weather, and that's heartbreaking. Whenever you have severe weather come through, because at the end of the day, the fan safety and the safety of our team, the safety of our artists is the most important thing. That's the thing at DWP we pride ourselves on is leading with the safety of our event first and foremost. And so whenever you have to pause a show or cancel a performance or even cancel, an entire festival day, which we've had to do, it's heartbreaking because you know how excited the fans were. You know what it took for them to get there in terms of the financial commitment, the time off work, the time away from their family. And you know how much the artists want to play to those fans, especially when we're talking about some of our big festivals, which are the biggest in the United States. And those are, for some artists, bucket list performances. And then, the amount of time that the staff and the team takes to plan them. So anytime we have to cancel for weather, we know we made the right decision, but it still is heartbreaking because we know how disappointing it is. And that's the last thing we ever want to do.
Sure.
Is disappoint anyone. But at the end of the day, the safety is more important than that. And we try to leave those circumstances by learning how can we communicate with the fans more efficiently? How can we keep them up to date with current time information? And then after the event, in the event that we did have to cancel, how do we communicate with them and try to make it as right as we can? In the festival landscape, there really isn't an option to reschedule because the bands are coming in for this one day and then they have tours and dates the after, before, and also with the venues and the builds that it takes. It's really hard to reschedule. So we try to lead with what can we do to make it sting a little less,
right?
For the fans, and really just put ourselves in their position of what can be done from a festival perspective to try to do right by them, knowing that ultimately the one thing that they want, which is a rescheduled performance, is the hardest. But through my career, we had a festival that was the first performance after Chris Cornell's passing. So that was really tough. I mean, that's probably one of the toughest scenarios that I've been put in and our team has been put in is, we got the call at 3 a.m. the night that it happened. And I think we had about 24 hours before Soundgarden was supposed to perform.
Right.
And so really had to navigate that time of how can we celebrate this amazing man's contributions to our genre and to music? How do we recognize that and celebrate it while also mourning the loss and doing something that felt special to our fans, all in conjunction with making sure his family was going to be okay with it and that we were being incredibly sensitive to them, but knowing also that there was a pretty big spotlight on us because we were the next show that was on the tour after his passing. So that was definitely a time, and it was Danny Wimmer Presents, and then I was at AEG Presents at the time. We were partnered on that event of really just pulling in the team and focusing on what we could control in order to celebrate him. And again, coming with it from a fan perspective of what would be special and create that moment for the fans to really mourn and celebrate his life. So that was a really unique scenario that hopefully never have to deal with again.
Absolutely.
Just because of its uniqueness. But
what did you come up with? What did you end up doing to celebrate Chris?
We were able to get Corey Taylor to come out and perform. He was not on the lineup, but he was in town doing an event for us leading up to the festival. So we were able to get him to come out and perform, and then we put together a video montage just of his life, celebrating what he brought to the rock genre, what he brought to music in a really beautiful way that, again, mourned the loss, but also celebrated the life.
Right.
With his team's blessing, and showcase that to the 40,000 people that were in attendance that night.
Wow, it would have been very emotional. I imagine.
It was very emotional, yeah.
Yeah. When you look at the festivals that you oversee at Danny Wimmer Presents, I mean, if you think about just the coming months, September and October alone, Aftershock, Golden Sky, Bourbon Beyond, Louder Than Life, an incredible range of festivals. What do you find to be the most impactful marketing strategies and the most impactful channels as well to promote and sell tickets to those shows?
You know, there are 3 different genres represented between the 4 festivals. We have, rock at Louder and Aftershock, and then country at Golden Sky, and then Bourbon and Beyond is really, multi-genre. So we're able to cross a lot of different bands off through that festival. And so the marketing strategy really changes a lot based off of, who our audience is, who our artists are. Mm-hmm. And, we really take a holistic approach to each festival. The marketing really starts at the festival and the experience that we provide to the fans. And that's sort of, we like to think of marketing in, sort of a relay race, if you will. And it really starts the year before with our operations team, and they, get the baton, and their goal is to provide the best experience possible for our fans, for their money. And we pride ourselves on fixing the issues we can fix in real time and making adjustments to make the weekend better as we go on, so that when they leave, they're ready to come back, the next year. And so it really starts with that experience on site, and then our operations team, hands the baton off to our artist and talent team who book it. It's not really cyclical how it happens, because booking is already starting for 2024 and even 2025 right now.
Right.
But then, the talent team works on how they're curating the days, the stages, how from the headliner down, how we're providing, 12 hours that really super serve that fan for that day. And, working on getting all the talent, confirmed and advanced and in the right order on the ad mat and on the right stage, which is, a massive undertaking. So they kind of take the baton, they're, getting the lineup sorted, and then it's handed over, to marketing. And, we get the honor of getting to announce the lineups,
right.
Which, I always tell my team, how great is it that we are the ones who get to let everyone know who's coming.
Right.
Because it's such an anticipated announcement, that fans are waiting for. There's all kinds of, theories, and there's thousands of fans who are speculating and putting together their own lineups based off of who's going to be on cycle, who's touring, who's not, in the area, and tour announcements. I sort of call every festival announcement our Super Bowl halftime show.
Right.
And we get to announce it and roll out that year's creative and that year's lineup, and really be on the front lines of letting everyone know what they can expect. And then from there, we have a full team. We have the ticketing team, the customer success team, our creative and content team, and then our marketing and social teams that really craft what our overall calendar is, where we're spending every dollar on the reporting, making sure we're hitting our benchmarks, on the segmenting, and then making sure that we have the fresh creative and content to really fuel the sales for anywhere from 6 to 9 months, and tell the story of getting people excited to come spend the weekend with us. And really, every year, social media evolves so much, and a lot of times we don't even know about the changes that are happening in social till we get in and find it out ourselves. Mm-hmm. That's been the biggest game changer, obviously, for promoting. 10, 15 years ago, I would say our budgets were 70% on traditional media and 30% on the digital landscape. Mm-hmm. And just as the consumer segmenting, and having to find them in multiple places, and the attention span and the competition for entertainment, not just in festivals, but live events, sports, movies, everything that encompasses entertainment, really having to have a specialized approach when it comes to how you communicate on social media, and then making sure that the other digital, maneuvers you're using are supporting that your traditional media, through our radio and TV and outdoor and street team buys are also supporting everything being back into our funnel of capturing people on social media so we can market to them at a much lower price point and much more effectively.
Right. In terms of socials, using those four upcoming festivals as an example, you mentioned they're different genres and you may take a different approach to each one. Do you find a particular social channel resonates more with a rock audience than a country audience, for example? Is it that specific?
It can be. Facebook is, I don't want to say our number one, but it's where we have the most fans in our audience, just because it's been around the longest. And for a certain demographic of age, it is still their number one source for information, finding out about events, and communicating back with the events. Instagram is definitely getting up there in terms of the number of fans that we have with each brand. And what we're trying to do right now is really figure out how we break up our approach to those two. So we're not just doing a one-size-fits-all of communicating with an Instagram audience the same way we communicate with the Facebook audience.
Right.
And trying to provide that separation so that the content speaks to who is utilizing that network the most. And that's obviously always going to be a work in progress, especially as new social media outlets get thrown into the fold and people start consuming differently and transitioning their using habits.
Yeah.
Adding in TikTok, which we are just now starting to venture into. And then you have Snapchat and Twitter.
Right.
But Facebook and Instagram have definitely been, our tried and true, where we spend more of our social money, where we put more of our content. But we are working, and it's not an overnight solution. It's going to take us, the rest of this year, I think, to really hone in on what our strategy needs to be to make sure we're also communicating and providing content to the other social media platforms. Twitter is consumed much differently than Facebook and Instagram, and especially for concerts versus breaking news.
Yeah.
And then, Snapchat is a much different demographic than what is on Facebook. And then TikTok is just, it's just blown up. Like, it's crazy.
Sure.
And so really figuring out what our approach needs to be to that platform with the intent really to figure out how we can find the youth and how we can educate them about our events, in a much more organic and holistic way than maybe buying ads on Facebook or the way that we communicate to our Facebook audience.
Right.
So we've actually just hired a new director of digital communication, which is really going to help us hone in on the strategies for our different social media, breaking up the content and making it feel as organic and natural to the consumers of that platform as we can.
Right. You mentioned having the honor of doing the lineup announces. Is there an art to the lineup announce in terms of whether you give the whole bill away or just some of the bill? Is there an art to how you actually do release a lineup?
I don't know if an art. I would say there is a plan, because I think we have a 5-page checklist that we get through that starts 30 days out from the lineup announce. And really there's probably 20 things that need to happen every day in that 30-day period to be ready.
Wow.
To announce a festival, we probably go through anywhere from 30 to 50 versions of the ad mat just to get the order right, the size of the bands right, the creative right. And then once that gets signed off, just to announce a show and put it on sale, we need about 70 pieces of creative sized differently. So that's a massive undertaking for our creative team, just to get us to the point where we can announce. And then from there, it's, okay, now we need 50 new pieces every week to be able to communicate and to, let people know about this event in a unique way, to really entice them to want to buy a ticket.
Yeah.
But we work really closely with all of the different departments, at the company, because you got to be in sync and you have to be in alignment. So it's everything from identifying our FAQs and info and making sure that all of the consumer information is organized and in a way that they can disseminate it for those fans who want to know a little bit more about the event before they, buy their ticket. It's getting the maps right. It is obviously the creative. It is coordinating with every artist on the lineup for them to also post and promote. It's the press release, it's the partners, it's all of our sponsors and brand partners that need to be aligned. And then a lot of times, revamping our parking or camping or some of the extra, our hotel packages, the things that make it really easy for consumers to afford and have one-stop shopping to be able to come to our events. So getting all of that organized with our operations team and our experience team, identifying what our VIP programming is and how we're communicating that back to the fans, and then getting it all set up within our ticketing partner. So yeah, that we have about 100 things that need to happen to announce a festival. So when we announce and it's out there, it's a little anticlimactic because we've been working in just making sure everything is dialed in and we have all the information.
Sure.
And then it's like within 1 second, it's, and now we're announced. And so then you kind of just sit there like, okay, what are people saying? What are people saying? Like, what's their reaction? How many people are on our website?
Right.
Then obviously throughout the cycle of the sales, we release other information, like what experiences are going to be on site. Obviously set times are, a massive announce so that people can plan, their weekend. And so we have those kinds of things that happen throughout. But yeah, that lineup announce is really, really special. And for our team, we get to, we're working on that now for 2024 shows. So
right.
We have started seeing who's going to be on those bills and starting to get ourselves internally organized for those announces. Our sales cycles start a little earlier in that we announce the dates and put early bird on sale, a couple months before lineup announces come. Mm-hmm. Just for those fans, that know they're coming, that this is a tradition for them, and wanting to offer them up a low deposit and more months to be able to pay off their package, so it makes it really affordable for them. So we're getting ready to roll out our 2024 dates this month, or at the end of July, and then in August for 3 of our 2024 events, and then we'll actually be doing that in tandem with the 2023 events for our September and October shows, announcing the 2024 events and putting them on sale.
That's what I was wondering. At what point, talking about those events that are upcoming, at what point in 2023 do you start actually selling tickets for 2024? Is it actually before the 2023 event has even happened? Do you find that effective?
We've tried everything. And I think if you talk to any promoter, they will tell you a different answer. Mm-hmm. But we are really starting to get into the data and the science of it and making the right decisions versus relying on what we've done in the past or what we believe to be the best.
Right.
Ultimately, we want to go on sale early because we want those fans who we know are coming, they aren't waiting for the lineup, to have those extra months to pay off. I mean, if you have a $200 ticket and you have 10 months to pay it off, it's only $20 a month.
Right.
Versus if you only have, 5 or 6 months. And for some people, that can be the difference in them coming. And so it's really important for us to go on sale early for those fans that are committed to us. They know they're coming, and they just want to be able to plan and make it affordable for them. I would say that there is no tried and true best way to do it. Mm-hmm. But I think if you and I talk in a year from now, I will have a lot more insight on the hard facts, the black and white of it.
Sure.
Of really letting us make those decisions by data versus gut. But ultimately, as the longer we can be on sale and make it affordable, our fans appreciate that, and that's a win for us.
Yeah. In terms of that data and that science, is there particular data or analytics that you put more weight behind when you're thinking about your marketing or you're thinking about on-sale dates?
Well, for on-sale dates, just to segment that question up a little bit, for on-sale dates, it starts with the talent team and when they are ready and have the lineup done, which is a very laborious process to get it right. We want to go out with the best lineup that we could build for any given year at that time. And so we have goal dates. Right now I have all 2024, dates penciled in of when we want to announce the lineup. But ultimately it's about getting the lineup right first and hoping that we can stick to these dates. And again, we're trying to go A little bit earlier. It used to be 10 years ago, you could announce a festival 3 months out because the festival marketplace wasn't quite as crowded.
Right.
And same with tours. They weren't announcing a year out. They weren't announcing 18 months out. They were, it was kind of a 3-month cycle. And then, we started getting more and more ahead of that as a festival producer, and knowing that, people need to plan, and especially as a lot of our events, pool anywhere from 25 to 35% locally, but the rest really regionally and nationally. Having time to plan that travel, whether it's booking, your hotel, your airfare, deciding if you're bringing the whole family, or if you need to find, someone to watch the kids, or who's coming with you. And so we started getting into that like more 5 to 6 month out. Mm-hmm. And that was where we pretty much were going into COVID. And then coming out of COVID, everything was upside down and inside out, and are slowly getting back to that goal of, I think, even more 6 to 9 months out.
Right.
That really, if we could get our lineups announced 9 months out, that would be ideal. But there's so many moving parts that have to be put into place. Our talent team starts working a year and a half out, and it takes a good 9 months to get the lineup secure on their end. So, but the more time that we are on sale to the public, the more time that people can amortize their payments, and the more time that they can really plan their weekend is going to result in the most success for not only the fan experience, but also for us, and us being able to plan, for the amount of patrons that are coming, and all of the things that our operations and site team really work on day in and day out for the festival experience.
Yeah. The longer the festival's on sale, I guess the longer you have to try and maintain people's interest, but also get people to still commit to buying. In between that peak of on sale, you've got that big burst of activity, and perhaps in the weeks leading up to the festival, there's another big burst of ticketing activity if it hasn't sold out yet. That period in between, which some people call a bit of a dead zone, are there particular levers that you can pull which will just continue that ticket momentum? I think releasing set times is something you mentioned earlier. Are there other levers that are particularly effective?
We run paid marketing and organic marketing every day during the festival's sales cycle. So starting at early bird, and then really honed in once we have the lineup announced, and we have that like pretty distinct marketing message that we're putting out into the world. But there are certain triggers throughout the cycle that we know people are more excited about, announcing the experiences, announcing the set times, like you said. All of our festivals are sold in price levels. And so, it's built so that those people who are buying early, they have the most affordable entry price. And then as the cycle goes on, they do get more expensive, really to take care of those fans who are loyal and know they're coming, to us, and giving them the most affordable option. So anytime we have price level changes or getting low on inventory, obviously that helps. We really format our marketing in 30-day increments. So we obviously analyze what is happening in the marketplace with our ticket counts every day. And then every week we really look at our paid initiatives and where we're seeing the results, and what our return of investment is, what our return of ad spend is, make sure we're hitting our benchmarks and KPIs that we need there, making adjustments in real time, pulling a new creative or opening up some segmenting. We do that once a week. And then every 30 days we have a benchmark goal that we need to be at X percentage of sales at each 30-day increment in order to reach the end goal that we've identified, as part of the budgeting process before we go on sale, of what we believe, based off the historical, the lineup, the consumer appetite, the sales will be for that festival. And then it's just every 30 days we make sure we're staying on track with that. And in anywhere where we're, overperforming, making any adjustments to the potential capacity, do we have the ability to increase it? And then if we're underperforming, making those adjustments in the marketing spends and the marketing outreach we're doing to try to catch up to get us back on track.
You mentioned segmenting. How granular do you try and get with your segmenting? Like, how do you approach that?
It's interesting because I think you could segment an audience 1,000 ways. or you could segment it 3 ways. And in what we do in live events, you have to be so nimble, and you can't be tried and true to any particular approach, because every festival is unique. Every market that we go to is unique. Even those festivals that we have in back-to-back markets. So, Louisville, for example, where we have Bourbon Beyond one weekend and Louder Than Life the next. How we market those shows and segment those audiences is very different, and even gets adjusted throughout the sales cycle based off of the results we're seeing. We do A/B testing in, our digital paid, as well as in our SMS and email marketing. And that's probably where we get the most granular in our segmenting, is the type of messaging that we're communicating to a certain fan segment. Utilizing some of our resources. We have a great list of agencies that we work with for our digital marketing. And so, I would say socials and email, SMS is where we're able to do the most segmenting. But even traditional radio and TV, we have started getting, experimenting more in segmenting there, and particularly a show like Bourbon and Beyond, where we have, 10 different genres. We really went in and started saying, okay, we have the Black Keys. If you're a Black Keys fan, who else on our bill is going to get you really excited? They're headlining Saturday night, and then we also have the Black Crowes and the Avett Brothers, performing on the same night. But who else is performing throughout that festival weekend that's going to have a Black Keys fan excited? And we started creating customized radio spots that speak just to that fan, and putting them on just the formats that are applicable, instead of trying to be a overwhelming, everything from Bruno Mars to Wayne Newton. Really identifying the genre, the fan, and doing custom creative for that fan. So that's an approach we've taken to radio in the last year, and also on our organic socials. And then even taking that to our paid socials whenever we are able to utilize any advertiser access via our artist pages, of really bundling up the artists that play well together,
right?
That can supersize one fan base. So, that's some of the entry point, segmenting we've been doing. We could talk about segmenting all day, especially whenever you're talking about live events where we're pulling in a ton of different demographics. Most of our events, at least our big 4-day events, sell tickets to all 50 states, anywhere from 15 to 25 countries. So you can get incredibly granular whenever that's how big your marketplace is.
Yeah.
We've just brought on a in-house data scientist to actually help us hone in this particular area. We really want to be on the forefront of using the science of our consumers, the science of our lineups, the science of the purchasing habits, to help inform our decisions, versus relying on collectively hundreds of years of experience. But like, all of that information is there. It's just having the right resource that can pull it all together and tell you what that story is. And so it's a big investment that I'm excited that we're making.
Nice. I just briefly wanted to ask you about influencer marketing. Is that an important part of your strategy? And if so, is there an activation that's proved really successful for you?
Yeah, so it's becoming more and more important, because the type of organic content that influencers lean into that speaks to their fan base can really tell the story to their fans in a way that maybe the brand isn't doing, because we're telling that story to the festival's fans. And so, it's something we, coming out of COVID, have definitely been getting into more and more with each passing event. And we utilize a variety of different ways. We work with a couple of agencies that represent more of those, macro influencers, more regional or even local tastemakers. And then, there's some bigger influencers that have a really, big, robust following on TikTok and Instagram that are very much in alignment with our genre that we utilize across multiple festivals. So I would say it's something that we are exploring, dabbling in, and looking to be much more aggressive in.
Right.
But are really going to school on it right now to figure out what is the right approach for each festival, And how can you curate a program, that is successful not only for the influencers experience, but for the story that we're wanting to tell about the festival.
Yeah.
I don't think influencers are going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They're becoming more and more popular on different networks where you have, your Instagram influencers, your TikTok influencers, your Twitter influencers. So it's really figuring out how we can utilize them in their most natural state.
And so once the event is over and the fan has left the gates, what's the most effective way for you to contact them? What are you finding the best way? Do you email them with a thank you? Do you email them with post-festival footage? Is it particularly all on socials? How do you ensure that you maintain that relationship with the fan once they've left the gates?
Yeah, I think that's always something that has to evolve. We definitely throughout the weekend and then post-event are posting, sort of the best of and, the sizzles and the wish you were here and, just having people live off of that high of the weekend. And we do, the bulk of that is done on our socials. However, we do stay in regular email communication, SMS. We do surveys with our fans. We really want to hear from them about their experience and their feedback. Mm-hmm. It's the only way that we're going to be better and continue to elevate that experience is if we know what the fans enjoyed, we know the areas that we missed on so we can focus on those, and we know what they value so that we can make sure we continue to provide that for them. And then we start with the next year's marketing and announcing those dates and putting those on sale. And so we utilize the content that we capture on site, to create that year-round marketing message and really in the experience and in the enjoyment that it brings to the fans, because for, anywhere from 1 to 3 months post-event and sometimes longer, that is what we're marketing is the experience and, what the fans were able to enjoy because we don't have the next year's lineup. Ready to go right when the previous years announce. So we're really playing off that emotion and that's whenever we're able to really get to know our fans and what they like, what they didn't like, and understanding them on a much more natural level so that as we're looking ahead to the next year, that's always in our forefront from building experiences and the lineup and communicating. We ask them, where do you hear about your news? Where did you hear about this festival? How do you communicate with this festival? To really be able to identify and hone in on the best approach to create that year-round relationship with them.
Right. Very last thing. Has there been a pinch me moment for you where you've got the opportunity to work with an artist that is particularly special to you?
Yeah. Well, so I had a couple in the span of, I think it was 3 weeks, maybe 2 weeks. I used to do quite a few Paul McCartney's shows in the U.S. And that same year, I think I had 4 or 5 Paul McCartney shows, and then I had 4 or 5 Rolling Stones. Wow. And I got to meet Paul, luckily, Sir McCartney, and I got to sit in with him and just talk to him about the show, the marketplace he was playing, and just, have him get to know who the audience that was coming to the event. And never in my life would I have thought that I would have had a one-on-one 15-minute conversation with Paul McCartney. Yeah. And then 2 weeks later, I got to do the same thing for Mick Jagger. And so within the span of 2 weeks, getting to not only go to a Paul McCartney and a Rolling Stones concert, but also sit down with the 2 biggest legends, living legends at least, but legends ever. I kind of was like, okay, I can be done. It'll be okay. So that was a pretty special summer. But
That's amazing.
Anytime, our events, we just had one wrap a week and a half ago. And, as you said, gearing up for a really massive fall. Those are pinch me moments for our team because you work so hard on these events. You work year round for really the event to take place in 3 or 4 days. Mm. And so it's really savoring those weekends and experiencing them and, looking at them through the eyes of our fans and, really getting to see what makes them so special. We're fan first. And, those are definitely pinch me moments when the doors open on day one. and we see the line of people who've been waiting, 10 months, 11 months for this event, and just the smiles on their faces. I mean, that's a pinch me moment that we get to have, a couple dozen times a year throughout all of our events.
Nice.
But yeah, getting to have one-on-one time with Paul and Mick was definitely a highlight for me.
That's amazing. Chamie, that was wonderful. Thank you so much for all your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.